On January 31st, 2025, inside Moscow's International Boxing Center, two fighters with completely different identities stepped into the ring. On one side stood Ruslan Belousov, a product of the Russian amateur system, a fighter built on discipline, footwork, and technical precision. On the other side was Gabriel Santisima of the Philippines, an undefeated knockout artist whose nickname, Iron Punch, told you everything you needed to know about his style. Santisima entered the fight with a record of 7 wins and 6 knockouts, meaning nearly everyone who had faced him before had felt the terrifying power in his hands. In the Philippines, where boxing culture runs deep, thanks to legends like Manny Pacquiao, Santisima was beginning to build a reputation as one of the country's most dangerous rising punchers. But fighting in Moscow was a different challenge entirely. Belousov wasn't a typical opponent who would stand in front of him and trade punches. Instead, Belousov represented a different philosophy of boxing, one based on movement, timing, and tactical control. As the fighters were introduced, the contrast between them was clear. Both were the same height, both fought in the featherweight division, and both were hungry to prove themselves on an international stage. But their approaches to the sport could not have been more different. Santisima carried the threat of a sudden knockout every second he was in the ring. Belousov carried the patience of someone who understood that fights are often won slowly, round by round. When the opening bell rang, it wasn't just a fight between two fighters. It was a clash between two different boxing worlds. The first round began quietly, but beneath the calm surface, both fighters were studying each other carefully. Santisima held the center of the ring, looking for the opportunity to unleash the explosive punches that had ended so many of his previous fights. Belousov, however, refused to give him that opportunity. Instead of charging forward, the Russian moved lightly on his feet, circling the ring and constantly shifting his stance. At times he fought orthodox, and seconds later he switched southpaw, forcing Santisima to constantly reset his positioning. This subtle movement immediately disrupted the rhythm that Santisima relied on. The Filipino puncher wanted a target that stayed still long enough for him to load up his power shots, but Belousov refused to cooperate. Rather than trading big punches, the Russian began targeting the body with sharp, precise strikes. These weren't dramatic punches that excited the crowd, but they served an important purpose. Each body shot slowly drained energy and limited Santisima's ability to explode forward with his knockout attacks. The difference in experience and style was becoming visible. Santisima was clearly dangerous, but Belousov looked comfortable, controlling the distance. When Santisima tried to step inside, Belousov stepped away or countered with quick straight punches. By the end of the round, the pace of the fight had already been set. Santisima was the hunter, searching for the knockout, while Belousov had become the tactician, dictating where the fight would take place. It was a small advantage, but in boxing, small advantages often grow into decisive ones. Despite Belousov's growing control, everyone in the arena understood that Santisima's power could change everything instantly. Knockout punchers only need one perfect moment, and in the third round, that moment nearly arrived. As Belousov stepped inside to exchange punches, Santisima suddenly fired a sharp left hand that cut through the guard and landed clean. For a brief moment, the entire arena froze. The punch carried the same explosive force that had ended 6 of Santisima's previous fights. Belousov felt it too, quickly stepping backward and tying Santisima up before more damage could follow. It was the first true reminder of the danger Santisima brought into the ring. The crowd reacted immediately, sensing the possibility that the fight might suddenly swing in favor of the Filipino puncher. But what happened next revealed the difference between a good fighter and a highly skilled one. Instead of panicking, Belousov adjusted his strategy. He increased his movement, avoided extended exchanges, and began using longer combinations before standing safely out of range. The brief scare seemed to sharpen his focus even more. From that point forward, Belousov's attacks became more confident and more precise. His jabs landed more frequently, his counters became sharper, and his body shots continued to chip away at Santisima's energy. The power of Iron Punch had appeared, but it had not changed the outcome of the round. Instead, It served as a warning that reminded Belousov to stay disciplined. As the fight entered the middle rounds, Belousov's control over the match became increasingly obvious. His footwork was relentless, constantly forcing Santisima to chase him around the ring. Every time the Filipino fighter attempted to close the distance, he was met with a combination of quick punches that disrupted his rhythm. Belousov's ability to switch stances continued to confuse Santisima, who struggled to find the correct angle to launch his powerful hooks. Meanwhile, the Russian boxer remained calm and composed, carefully selecting the moments when he wanted to engage. One of the most impressive aspects of Belousov's performance was his body work. Repeatedly, he targeted the beltline with sharp counters that slowed Santisima's forward movement. These punches gradually removed the explosive speed that made Santisima so dangerous earlier in the fight. By the fourth and fifth rounds, the momentum had clearly shifted. Belousov was no longer simply avoiding danger. He was now confidently dictating the action. His combinations flowed smoothly, often starting with quick punches upstairs before finishing with another damaging shot to the body. Santisima still searched for the knockout, throwing occasional powerful hooks in hopes of turning the fight around, but Belousov's defensive awareness prevented those punches from landing cleanly. The Russian boxer was showing the full range of his skills: speed, timing, movement, and tactical intelligence. What had begun as a cautious opening was turning into a clear demonstration of technical superiority. By the time the sixth and final round began, the situation was clear for both fighters. Santisima needed a knockout if he wanted to preserve his undefeated record. The Filipino puncher pushed forward aggressively, increasing the pressure and throwing heavier punches than he had earlier in the fight. He knew that time was running out, but Belousov remained calm under the pressure. Instead of retreating completely, he continued engaging just enough to keep the crowd entertained, while still maintaining control of the fight. Each time Santisima threw a big punch, Belousov answered with a precise counter. A sharp right hand here, a quick body shot there. Every exchange seemed to favor the Russian fighter. The final seconds of the fight captured the entire story of the match. Santisima pushed forward with determination, searching desperately for one final knockout opportunity. Belousov calmly stepped around him, landing clean punches while avoiding the dangerous hooks coming his way. When the final bell rang, both fighters raised their gloves, but the difference in their performances was obvious. Santisima had shown courage and power, but Belousov had displayed the deeper skill set. Moments later, the judges confirmed what the audience had already seen. The decision was unanimous. Ruslan Belousov had defeated the previously unbeaten Gabriel Santisima. It was a victory built not on overwhelming power, but on intelligence, discipline, and technical mastery. A reminder that in boxing, the smartest fighter often wins the war.